Let's bring up our first two guests of the evening, Brian Attard and Mike Galletta from the Sports Box Highly Opinionated Show, Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Gentlemen, welcome back.
What up, guys?
How are you?
Doing good. It's that time of week, and I couldn't ask two better guests to come on this week because you're teeing off against each other. What's that been like?
Yeah, that's a happy accident. I actually also have my fantasy draft tomorrow night, so we're actually preempted this week. But so I'm glad to be on with you guys because we had no show this week as a result.
James, I know as a fellow Giants fan, I'm really looking forward to going to MetLife this weekend for Week 1 against the Denver Broncos. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But Brian and Mike, we're going to talk about both your teams tonight. Just want to quickly preview Tampa Bay, and then we'll go over to Dallas, and then we'll somewhat preview the game. But before we start, can you guys just plug your highly opinionated show and where people can find that?
Mike?
I mean, sure, we're every Tuesday night at 8:30. We give a full gamut of the spectrum. We talk hockey, we talk football, we talk basketball. We talk about everything. We don't fight as much as we used to, I guess, because we know each other so well. But no, we have a great time. We've been doing this I've been doing it for 6. Brian's been doing it for 5 as my partner. So we're having a blast. We're doing it every Tuesday night at 8:30. We got an array of shows during the week. We have 2 MMA shows, a baseball show, a basketball show, a golf show that I do. It's a full gamut. We love sports, and we got the guys that'll do it for us. So
Sports Box Network keeps growing. I forget how many shows we're up to now, but it's you know, when it was just me and him like doing stuff, like it's you don't really think like it could actually get bigger like that.
Out of my basement with a cell phone.
Right. Yeah, right. Kind of like with you guys. Like first it was review and preview, and then grew from there, which is awesome. I love seeing that. I love seeing people that we like do really well and grow. So kind of in the same boat. Happy to be here tonight.
Appreciate that, and I know you guys are based down in Hamilton, New Jersey. So hope you guys are okay with the storm and everything. I know rainstorm is pretty bad.
Yeah, it went right up the 95 corridor, missed us by about an hour here where we're at. So I mean, to all those people that got hit from it, we're praying for you. Hope everything is well, and you guys get back on your feet. So
we were very lucky where we were. Probably about what, like 25 minutes away.
Yeah. There was a couple EF3 tornadoes, which never happened in Jersey. So we got lucky this time. So
as long as everybody's okay, that's the biggest thing. But Mike, I want to start with your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They won the big game last year, but they didn't win the NFC South. They won it as a wild card. They went 11-5. So I want to touch upon them first with Brian and yourself. My first question to you is, Tom Brady heads into his second season with the Bucs. Does the Father of Time lead this team to another deep playoff run, or is there something that could potentially get in the way of that?
It's funny that I always bring this up, and Brian knows it too. I always say that I was wrong when they first signed Brady coming to this team. I said, the first show we did, I said, you know what? I don't like the move. And they were like, what are you talking about? I said, listen, the guy's been in New England for 20 years. He's going to learn a whole new offense now. He's going to be in his 40s. He's going to hit the wall soon. I was like, is he going to hit it with my Bucs? Is he going to come in here and just kind of, for the last 2-3 years of his existence, just be awful, the Tom Brady that we never saw? But you know what? I was wrong, and he could play till he's 60 for all I care now, because I was wrong. This guy's got a great work ethic. He doesn't want to lose. He pushes and pushes and pushes. And you know what? Last year he was 65% pass completion, 4,600 yards passing, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a rating of 102. I don't know how you expect the guy to do it again, but you know what? He probably will. He'll probably come close to those numbers again. And they were enough to get them as far as they did last year. But like you said, Tom, they didn't win a division last year either. With those numbers, you think he probably would have. But I mean, they got in as a wild card. They had a lot of momentum. Their secondary's gotten a lot better, and the defense played phenomenal all the way to the Super Bowl. So that really catapulted them. But to your question about Tom Brady, I think he could do it again. I think he can come pretty close. If he's a little bit short of that, I'm fine with that. But I mean, to me, he's still an MVP quarterback right now. He's just playing at that level.
Absolutely. I think it's very intriguing to watch Tampa Bay this season, seeing if they can take over that NFC South. Obviously, the quarterback change with the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees retiring, and now Jameis Winston taking over the reins, and the Saints, at least through the first month of the season, won't even be playing any home games. So they're already at a slight disadvantage there with that. I believe they're playing the Packers in Jacksonville. Guys, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
Paper official, but it's going to be very interesting to see. And speaking of Jacksonville, James, I know the Bucs have an interesting running back combination that we wanted to touch upon tonight with the guys.
Yes, they had Larry Fournette returns in the backfield with Ronald Jones, and the receiver corps features a talented pool of players starting Mike Evans, 13 touchdowns last year. Is there a guy that you think Brady favors? So having all these other weapons now with him, does Brady favor one guy, or is he going to everybody?
I think he's going to spread it out like he always does. You know, the Tom Brady that wins never takes one guy. I mean, yeah, he has Gronk as a safety valve, and he's had him there for years, and he has him again in Tampa Bay. But I think that's the beauty of the offense. It keeps you on your heels as a defense, that you spread it around. And you got guys like Antonio Brown, Godwin, Evans, Cameron Brate. He's kind of forgotten in the cause because of Gronk. But, I mean, here's a guy who catches the ball for him. And even Scotty Miller out of the slot. So, no, he spreads it around to everybody very evenly. And I think that's why he's as good as he is. He has the time back there to sit back and analyze what's going on out there, and will just pick you apart and just dink and dunk down the field. Tom Brady doesn't have to throw the ball 40, 50 yards downfield anymore. He just, gets his first downs, moves the ball, keeps him moving down the field, and just gets the job done.
Brian, I want to get to you here. The Bucs have an interesting receiving corps. Is there any player that really sticks out to you on that receiving corps? Because I know Dallas has a loading receiving corps, but from the outside looking in, is there a player that you're scared to play in this Week 1 matchup?
I mean, I think you can make the case he's the top two receiving groups in the NFL. If nothing, they're both top 5 at the absolute very least. And I think that the scary one is a guy like Mike Evans, because, he's always been like the number one, but like a quiet number one. He hasn't really gotten the dap around the league for being the elite receiver, because he doesn't really run his mouth. A lot of receivers run their mouths. That's really kind of what, gets them, to the level of notoriety. But, it's really who you're going to let beat you, because when you're that deep at receiver, someone's going to get open, especially with that quarterback and that offensive line. So to me, I think Mike Evans is the game breaker of them all. Godwin's very good as well. It's 1A and 1B. Antonio Brown, it depends how he feels that day and if he's not arrested or not. But, Mike Evans is the one I think is what you really need to worry about. He's really the complete package at that position. And, if you're talking about game planning to take away a team's primary threat, you'd be hard pressed to say it's not him.
Yeah, and Mike, I really like Jalen Darden too. I know I talked to you about him briefly in the offseason. I don't know if you've seen anything that stuck out to you in preseason. He kind of reminds me of that typical slot receiver type of guy, like maybe a quicker version of Scotty Miller. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that definitely can be looked for in the future at wide receiver. I mean, this core is loaded right now, so I don't know how much time he's going to see, but he's going to be their punt returner. And he's fast. He can turn the corner on a dime. And it's I'm not going to talk about a Hall of Fame guy that I think he's like, but a Michael Spurlock, if you remember when he played for the Bucs, he's one of the first punt returners that ran back a punt for the Bucs, and he ran 2 more back after that. So he's the kind of guy they need back there to fill out kind of special teams, to have a guy that's kind of a threat to return something. So I think you're going to see a lot with him in their punt return team. He's had some nice punt returns. He hasn't broken any, but he's got some nice speed, and that's going to be just a stepping stone for the future for him.
And now this question goes out to both of you. And James, if you want anything to chip in on this, feel free to as well. The offensive line, they're coming off a very solid 2020 campaign. Tristan Wirfs is a player I wish the Giants would have drafted 4th overall, looking back on it. But what are your thoughts on that O-line? They seem to be a very together type of group. There's not one guy that stands out. I mean, maybe there is, Mike, from an insider's view, but to me, from an outsider, it seems more of like a cohesive unit where it's a group of 5 guys do their job. It's not a team where like the Ravens have Ronnie Stanley and he's their guy. But what are your general thoughts on the O-line?
Go ahead, Brian.
I mean, they're one of the best in football. And I agree with you there. Like nobody's like, the star or the stud, but I mean, they put resources into it. Again, you mentioned Tristan Wirfs, who was a 1st-round pick 2 years ago. This is not a secret. As Brady gets older, he can't run as easily. I mean, he'll pick you apart if he has the time. So, really, that's a big strength of their team. And nobody talks. I mean, people talk about it, but no one talks enough about the continuity of bringing back not just those 5 offensive line starters, but your 22 starters from a year ago. When you're trying to keep an offense and even a defense in the highest of octane, to have that continuity of everybody's back. Like, that doesn't happen in the NFL. It doesn't happen in Super Bowl champions because everybody goes and signs for more money, and that's the Brady effect. But yeah, I think it's an underrated part of their team because they give Tom the time to find the hole in the defense, and he will because he's Tom Brady.
Yeah, and that was the big thing, I think, coming into the season with Brady coming to the Bucs. They knew they had to keep him upright to have any kind of chance of getting him going. So Tristan Wirfs was right on their list of guys to get. Ali Marpet, he's been phenomenal. He's been one of the cornerstones of this offense. Talk about Ryan Jennings, Donovan Smith. I mean, they're just like you said, Tom. Their line has been together for a while now, and they're just really playing like an offensive line that coincides together. And Brian will tell you with Dallas, I mean, their line last year, got beat up and injuries and just took them apart. And that's the reason for their demise as well. But, before that, their line was cohesive and Dak had time back there to do what he wants to do. It's going to depend on that offensive line. If it breaks down for any reason, they have some injuries, some couple guys go out of lineup, Brady could be in some trouble. But as long as that line's intact, I mean, look out, sky's the limit. Tom Brady could explode again this year because he's got all the time in the world back there. That line has been awesome for them.
James, I think we pretty much covered all the bases on the offensive line. I mean, I still wish Wirfs was our guy and not Thomas, but it is what it is, and Thomas still has time to develop. Hopefully he does. But we do have a question from Marty Joins, actually more of a comment. Tom has his Andrew Thomas jersey stored for this season. He is one of my breakout candidates for the Giants, not to digress, but playing on that ankle injury last season. Hopefully he improves in year 2. Had a really good second half of the season. But thank you for the comment, Marty. If you have more comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can now. Next question, defensively, Devin White, who, in my opinion, is the best all-around linebacker in the NFL. 140 tackles, 9 sacks, and 18 tackles for loss last season. How special is he? And describe the type of leader he is for this Bucs defense. And we'll start with Mike here.
Well, and we do draft shows all the time. And this is another guy that I know Brian knows I had on my radar. I love Devin White coming out of LSU. 5th pick in the draft in 2019, 4.42 speed. It fits well into a 3-4-4-3 system. The guy's just a beast. I mean, he turns the corner on a dime. He can blitz from the middle. He gets to the quarterback, very effectively. You can move him around a little bit if you need to. He just does all facets. And Tom, I agree. He's going to be up for Defensive Player of the Year again. I mean, he's just that kind of player. He's a high motor guy who's got a great work ethic and something the Bucs desperately needed since the Derek Brooks days. I mean, I don't want to say he's like Derek Brooks yet because he's only had a couple years in the league, but I'll tell you what, he keeps playing the way he is. We're going to talk about him in the next 5 or 6 years of being Derek Brooks-like because big interceptions in the Super Bowl, big interceptions in the playoffs. I know he gets the guys fired up. They listen to him. It's a great guy to have. I hope he's here for many, many, many more years with the Bucs.
Brian, anything you want to add on Devin White? I know you drafted a very similar linebacker who has that type of potential.
You know what it is? It's the speed in a bunch of ways. If you're having him spy your running back, he can get to the line. He can stop the forward momentum obviously coming from the running back. He has 9 sacks as a linebacker, so. You can tell he is causing havoc in the backfield, whether it's a quarterback or the running back. And those guys are very, very hard to find, which is why they put, such a high pick into him. I'm not a huge linebacker guy generally because, again, it's a passing league. But when you have that speed to be able to cause that disruption where if you're getting to the quarterback and you're helping your pass rush, I mean, that's worth its weight in gold. I mean, you see what outside linebackers get paid now. If you're getting to the quarterback, you are making big money. If you're able to add to your outside rush with a guy like White, it just makes everybody that much more dangerous because he has no time to go make the throw.
We have a comment from Donald Hill in the comments section. Welcome back. Thank you very much, Hill, for the comment. Make sure to go check out 3-Man Weave. Those guys do awesome stuff with their podcast over there. And Hill, also a Cowboys fan. So good luck to you on Thursday night, Hill. Really looking forward to watching that football game. But before I get to James with the next question, I just want to say, if I'm starting a football team right now, right, and the first player, let's just say I'm starting like a dynasty and I can't take a quarterback, Devin White's in the discussion as that guy, right? Because everyone says, defense wins championships. I mean, offense will win you games, but you need a good defense to get to where you are. And that's why the Bucs won it all last year. They had a guy like him. I remember I think I was driving home and I was listening to the Bucs Saints playoffs game on the radio, and Devin White was all over the place. And the Saints were pretty much losing the game. And then the Bucs just came back and took it, which is, really speaks volumes as to how good of a player he really is.
Yeah, Tom, I don't want to say the Bucs got lucky, but I mean they really brought Devin White in, and he's that guy that just gets everybody energized, and they needed that on defense. I mean, their secondary has been awful for a while now, and now you got guys like Antonio Winfield Jr. back there who looks phenomenal. Jordan Whitehead's coming into his own. Sean Murphy Bunting looks really, really good. I mean, for this team's really come together in a quick way. It's amazing because for years, as a kid growing up with the Bucs all these years, I mean, since I was little, I just prayed that they would be 500. Now it's a new territory for me. Now I'm looking at for to win the division. If they don't, I'm going to be upset. So it's a whole different animal for me. But they've really got everything together at the right time at once.
Yep. Tom, thank you for telling me you're probably going to take Devin White sometime tomorrow in one of the drafts. So
that's right. We have defensive players.
Yep.
I'm going to abandon that strategy completely.
Okay. Devin White stinks. Don't take him.
But to the next question, expectations for first round pick Joe Tryon.
Well, Tryon, when they drafted him, I didn't really know that much about him coming out of Washington. I think that the overall plan for him is to kind of take the place of Pierre Paul because his contract's up next year. So that could be a guy that just slides into that spot. I mean, as for the preseason and what I've seen of him, I mean, he really looks impressive so far. 4.43 speed, 34-inch arms. I know he went up in the practice with O.J. Howard, and O.J. Howard, his nickname for him is the Beast. So that's a good sign. And this kid's quick off the corner. He's not a true end. He actually played a lot of middle linebacker at Washington, but they moved him around a lot, so he could technically be an end. So there's a spot on the end for him if Pierre Paul does go away. And I think they want to get this kid in, rotated in with Sue and Pierre Paul as much as they can to get him some work. But he looks really impressive so far in the preseason, I gotta say.
I like him a lot too. He was the guy that I was looking for another team to potentially take early on in the second round. I'm not going to name any names, but I think this was a pick that kind of flew under the radar. I liked it a lot for Tampa Bay. You have JPP, who is somewhat of an older pass rusher who still has a lot of game left in him, but to add depth to that is a recipe for championship success. And I think, Brian, I think this is a type of team that has the potential to do this again. Because obviously last year, Tampa Bay's defense is kind of what really stepped their game up as the season went along. The offense improved as well, but in particular, that defense really matured in such a quick amount of time.
Well, I bring up the continuity again. I mean, you can take anybody you want to at 32 because you're bringing everybody back. You're not really drafting necessarily for an immediate need. A lot of teams, like when they go into the draft, they're using that as a spot to, we need depth here, we need depth there. They're able to look a year or two down the road, so one year, for Pierre Paul's contract. That's the luxury of bringing everybody back. And you say, can they repeat? Sure, they can. That group just won. That's the same group that just won. So it's very easy to say, could they come back? Yeah, and I think they're going to be better this year than last year. But to the point on Joe Tryon is the pick there. They're able to plan years ahead. It's such a luxury that teams just don't have in the not for long NFL. I mean, it's kind of remarkable to think about, but they're able to play like 3D chess. Like we're good. JPP's got to go. Great. We need that money for something else. Great. We have a kid who's making rookie money. It's a great spot to be in.
Yeah. Absolutely. No. Were there any surprise cuts on cut down day? Obviously, cut down day is like Christmas every single year. We're waiting to figure out if guys are going to make this roster or not. Who's going to make the practice squad? Mike, was there any player that you were disappointed to see not make the Bucs roster that you thought originally would?
No, I think they did a good job of kind of keeping everybody together who they thought was going to be on the team, and the guys really that were just kind of showcasing for other teams to get picked up in the offseason. You saw some guys that I didn't see anybody really that I was like, thrown away like, oh my God, like up in New York when Corey Clement was cut, I told Brian I was floored that happened because they signed the 1-year deal and then you cut the guy. He must have looked awful for them to get rid of him. But there was really nobody for me that really blew me away that they cut that I was really shocked with.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't Corey Clement on the Cowboys now?
He is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 days after they cut him too. So
Brian, he did have one fumble in the preseason game, but other than that, I mean, he looked pretty solid. Like he was supposed to be our Dion Lewis this year, and it's very unfortunate that now that's not going to happen.
Well,
he falls into your lap.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about surprise cuts, not to jump the gun, but I think Corey Clement's presence in Dallas caused my surprise cut, which was, the running back Hardy, who, if you watch Hard Knocks, was the guy with the rec specs. He was pretty featured, and I thought that he could play like that kind. Given the fact that he was as fast as he was, could easily be a special teams contributor, but could be that third running back who plays a different style than the other two. Smaller guy, very like a Sproulsy. Even they said that on the show, where you really can't see him over the offensive lines. We can kind of, find his way. So I think if Clement had not ended up in Dallas, probably Hardy makes the roster, actually ended up on the practice squad. So he would be my surprise cut. But listen, Corey Clement comes with a Super Bowl ring. So, anytime you can add, that kind of veteran leadership to a group, you bring them in. I was surprised, frankly, that the Giants cut him, but that's okay. They add to the roster.
Not to mention, he was the leading receiver in that Super Bowl as well against the Patriots. Little fun fact. Comment from Mateo. Brian Attard, love the hat. Thank you for the comment.
He's a frequent contributor outside the box. So I always, he's a good Cowboy fan.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Mateo. Keep the comments coming, folks. We have a lot more coming up on the Bucs and the Cowboys. James.
So players to watch. You just told us about Joe Tryon. You look at Kyle Trask, looked much better in the last preseason game. Who else do you think would be a player or players to watch this season?
Well, I want to get back to the guy you just said, but first I'll tell you about KJ Britt, the linebacker out of Auburn. I think he's a guy that you could look for. I mean, this team really loaded up on linebacker depth that I think is vital because, you talk about Levante David, Shaq Barrett, guys like that. You never know, injuries could happen or things could get moved. They can get moved or whatever the case may be. I know he signed contracts, but who knows? They just got, Britt's a guy they can rotate in if they need to. High motor guy, again, just like Devin White, not as skill set as him, but he could be a guy in the future that you see playing or even playing with somebody else. But when you talk about Kyle Trask, I mean, I pat myself on the back. 2 years ago, I talked about Josh Allen coming to the league. I think he was going to be the best quarterback in that draft coming out of Wyoming, throws the ball around a lot. Last year was going to be Herbert. Once he gets a shot coming out of Oregon, throwing the ball around as well. Last year, I told Brian I'm going a little bit off the grid. I said, I'm going to say Kyle Trask is going to be the guy. I don't think he's going to start right away, but he's going to be a project. I said he's a smart kid, threw Josh Pitts a ton, had a couple other wide receivers that he didn't have in the bowl game, so he didn't look as particular as he did during the season. But here's a kid who now learns from in his home state, behind the best in the business for another 2 to 3 years, and can step into an offense that is going to have Mike Evans, Godwin, a lot of these weapons for him to use. It's a perfect setup for him. I think Trask is going to be a great backup quarterback to step right in behind Brady.
Yeah, and then to piggyback off that, we had a draft show on our channel, like you guys. I think it was my buddy's draft show on the Brew Party, and one of our guests was saying that he is a Bucs fan as well. Whoever gets Trask tomorrow has a potential real sleeper in this draft, potentially steal of day 2. And it happened to be a Bucs fan saying that. Maybe he had some mystery little globe or crystal ball that we're not aware of, but that was an awesome take there by Brian McGardle from the stands.
Again, the luxury of having a full roster. You can do things like that. Should he been a second round pick? Maybe not, but you can do that when you're not looking to fill an immediate need. Yeah. You can beat somebody to the punch and not care that you're maybe overdrafting by a round.
Yeah, Tom and James, I've never been so excited to have a second round pick in my life. It was just when they got him, I called Brian. I was like, oh my God, they did not just get Trask.
Yeah,
and I was he's like, why are you excited over a backup quarterback? I think the kid's going to be good.
There's a Donald Duck meme that pretty much encompasses.
Exactly.
Even if he sits for 2 or 3 years, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
like Brady mentioned, he wants to play into his late 40s. He's 44. So,
If he wants to play until his late 60s, he's pretty much earned it.
Give him a walker. Get him out there. That's fine. I have no problem with that now. I have no problem with that.
Brian, there's a question for you from Mateo about Zach Martin. If actually, I didn't know about this. So 2 negative tests, he can still play. I
don't know the actual rules on the protocol. My understanding is he tested positive for it, so it wasn't like a contact trace or anything like that. I think he's out for the game.
There might not be enough time before now into the game.
Yeah,
get 2 negatives.
If this game was Sunday, I mean maybe, but I think we're all learning what the protocols are going to be this year. I'm not familiar with them specifically. Yeah. My understanding is nobody said he's out. Like it's not, right. He's out for the game.
Brady had some comments on that as well, so that's kind of interesting that he brought that up. Mike, at this time, I want your record prediction for Tampa Bay. The Bucs have not won the NFC South since 2007. That was the year they were the 4 seed behind Jeff Garcia at QB. Where do you see the Bucs landing this year? If you could predict their record and then give us your team MVP for the Tampa Bay Bucs.
I'm not the kind of guy. I'd love to say they're going to win 14 games. I don't know if they can. That's kind of a tall order for them. I know there's 14-3. Sounds like they got the whole gang back together again. What they did last year in their run, they have everybody back. There's not one guy that's missing from that lineup. So that's hats off to them. I'm going to be a little bit conservative. I'm going to say 12-5 for this team, but it's still going to get them the division. I don't think there's really anybody in this division that can challenge them. I mean, you want to say the Saints. I don't think I've seen Jameis before. I don't think he can do it, especially with his forcing interceptions and things to that effect. I don't see New Orleans really catching the Bucs at all, and I don't think Atlanta can stop anybody still. So I'll say 12-5 for the Bucs. I think they win the South, obviously. And for MVP, I'm gonna say Brady again. I mean, I think he's the cog that makes this move. I mean, they brought him in last year, and it's amazing when you plug a quarterback into this team, how everything else falls in line. They got the winning attitude. I mean, I know after the Super Bowl, Mike Evans said, whatever it is, I'll cut my salary in half if anybody needs extra money to make this thing work. So they want this to work now. They're not worried about everything else in the way of money, years, and all. They want this to work, so they'll do whatever they take. So I'll say Brady's MVP again.
Awesome. Brian, where's your head at with this Tampa Bay Bucs team?
It's their division to lose. I think it actually got easier for them with Drew Brees hanging it up. I don't think they need to win the division to win the Super Bowl. They didn't last year, but all roads lead through Tampa. I mean, it really wouldn't surprise me at all if they have the number 1 seed in the conference when they get the bye. And I think for a veteran team, like that actually might be a little more important for them because they get that rest. Like last year, they didn't have that week off in between games because they were in the wild card round against Washington. So I don't see any reason why they're the prohibitive favorite to win the division. They probably should be also to win the conference. I mean, I think they're absolutely, in the top 2 or 3 teams to do that. So, I mean, it's to me, this season is very much, I'm a Yankee fan. I always joke around that like Green Day wrote a song about the Yankees called "Wake Me Up When September Ends." That's Yankee baseball. The regular season means nothing to Tampa Bay. Nothing. They just won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady, get to the playoffs, and let it happen from there. I don't think anybody cares what they do in the regular season.
I find that really interesting because just the way the Bucs have gone about their roster this offseason kind of makes me think that they are the favorites again. And outside of maybe the LA Rams and the Green Bay Packers, I don't see any team contesting with the Bucs for the NFC title. I think those are the 2 teams that you can look at and say they have a viable shot at this time. If there's one super dark horse, maybe you could throw in San Francisco. I mean, they're bringing back a lot of good players. They had a down year last year with all the injuries. You could make an argument for them, but I don't think that's a viable team at the moment. But yeah, overall, I think the Bucs, they're going to win around 13 games. I don't think they're going to go 14. I don't know if anyone's going to win 14. Maybe one team does at most. I think it's going to be an interesting year in the NFL where I don't see a 15-1 Chiefs team repeating that feat again. Like I don't see them winning 15 games this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And we do have a comment from Hill saying the timetable wouldn't add up for Zach Martin being able to return by Thursday, which is
I can't see it.
Yeah.
It's a huge loss, which I'll talk about, but it is a massive loss.
Hank says, how's it going? Thank you very much, Hank. We're going to be having our first Big Blue Avenue show of the season live on Thursday at 7 p.m. Hank and Dichter, Sam Cardona, and myself talking all things New York Giants with our special guest all the way from Idaho, Ross Allen from Fourth and Long Radio. So we're going to be talking to him about that game. Folks, make sure to go check us out on Thursday. Brian, we're going to move on to your Dallas Cowboys now. I think we pretty much covered all the points on Tampa Bay for now. James, I'll let you crack the first question here. I think I know where your head's at with this.
Okay, I'll go first. Would Dak Prescott be able to return to his original form? Considering he went out week 1, I believe, or week 2 with that pretty gruesome injury.
Week 5, right?
Week 5. It felt early on, but week 5. But yes.
Listen, that is a massive injury he's coming off of. And then he strained the shoulder in preseason. He didn't really have, he hasn't played really anything since that injury. And I've been a very vocal critic of Dak. I keep saying that, he for all the gaudy numbers, they've not done anything. And I think go back to last year and you say we'll look at the numbers he's put up. Well, yeah, your defense was garbage and put you in a situation to do that. And to be fair to him, I don't think you can. It wouldn't surprise me if he struggles out of the gate just because he hasn't played football. I'll be a critic when the time is right to do so. I really can't criticize anything he does this year. It's very much. This could be and this is, I think, the cloud that hangs over the team this year. And he's very, very important to whatever plans intentions that they have of doing anything. Is it may take him time to get back to himself. The quicker he does, the better it is for everybody. That's not rocket science. But if he struggles, you kind of can't blame him for that because he's coming off the injury he's coming off of. And everybody says, he looks great. Okay, well, he hasn't played actual football. So let's see it first. They go nowhere without him. So he absolutely needs to be himself if they intend to do anything. But again, that's a huge injury. I think it's very bullish to think he comes back and is himself at 8:15 on Thursday night. I think it's a lot to ask,
especially with Zach Martin being out. I think both tackles were technically listed as questionable, but I think they're both going to play. I know Baidaz is your new center at the moment. So, but Mike, I kind of want your take from Tampa Bay defensively. What type of Dak Prescott do you expect to see out there under center?
Well, like Brian said, he hasn't really played a lot in the preseason, so I expect a rusty Dak if he's out there. But I'm a fan of Dak Prescott. I think he's good for that Dallas system. I think he was kind of thrown into a system where he was supposed to be the backup to Romo for a little while, and Romo left, and they kind of left Dak holding the bag. Like, okay, now you're our starter. Let's see what you can do. And he wasn't drafted to be their guy. He wasn't drafted in to be the next coming and everything like that. He was just thrown in a position. He had to start learning. So, with a guy like Zeke there and with his receivers, with Cooper and things like that, I think he can be a good quarterback. It's just a matter of if he can come back from this injury. That was a devastating injury last year that he had. But I definitely gonna see some rust on him. And I think the Bucs got to really attack him early and keep him in the pocket and contain him. And I think that's only going to go, be trouble for Dak moving forward if they can do that early with him.
And coming from a Giants fan too, I would like to see Dak start all 16 games this year. I think that would be awesome because obviously, as a fan of another team, you want to win the division when everyone's at their best. You don't want to see guys go down in general. So I think that's really important for Dak's health. To have a solidified offensive line, and it doesn't look like they're going to have that in full tact on Thursday evening. Brian, Ezekiel Elliott enters year number 6. I know how you feel about paying running backs. That's no shocker to anybody. 5 fumbles last year, lost 4 of them. What's one key for him, though, to have a bounce-back season?
I think he has to have closer mentality. He can't look back at last year. Last year was just such a cluster all around for the team. So you want to attribute his problems to everything else going on? Fine. It was a bad year for the world. It is what it is. But he needs to have a bounce-back season because he's being paid to be a top 2 running back in the NFL. And I don't think he's been a top 2 running back in the NFL. He sure as hell wasn't last year. And I think if he doesn't start to be the guy he's paid to be, he's going to be paid to be that guy. And they will look for ways to get out of that contract when, the terms become a little bit more palatable to do so. But that, I guess that's the issue is, he's being paid very handsomely. And as we found out, if he doesn't have the elite offensive line, he's very pedestrian. There were times last year where Tony Pollard looked like the better running back and not by a little bit. So, it's one of those things where, again, if you are a product of your offensive line, then why are you paid the way that you are? What is the benefit you bring, or the marginal benefit you bring over somebody else? And is that worth the money? Probably not. He needs to prove that he's the reason his numbers are gaudy or were gaudy, not because of an elite offensive line creating the situations and being on an elite offense that is able to open up the field for him. And I think that, as a competitor, he knows what people are saying about him. He knows that, he signed this big deal, but, towards the last half of it was never this wonderful guarantee. So if he intends to see that money, he needs to, put the numbers up to support it. And I think they're going to give him every opportunity to do that. It's one thing about Jerry Jones is when he makes that kind of an investment, he wants it to look good. He doesn't want to appear to have made a bad investment. So I feel as though, to a fault, they're going to run him more. And on top of that, if you really think about it, if you're trying to get Dak back into the swing of things, the best thing you can do is get a solid running game going. I mean, just so you can spread that defense out a little bit and have them account for him. So, I think you're going to see him out of the gate fed, pardon the pun, a lot. and we'll see where they go with it. But having said that, having Zach Martin off the offensive line is a massive issue. Again, we need to see him be the Zeke that he was his first couple years in the league, and not anything like what he was last year. But again, last year was all kinds of screwed up. So let's just chalk it up to that.
Well, going from running back now, we're going to wide receiver. This is to both of you guys. Who leads the Cowboys in touchdown catches this year?
I think it's CeeDee Lamb. I think it's CeeDee Lamb for a number of reasons. Number one, like I said, Jerry Jones likes to show that his investments work out well. They put a high pick into this player when wide receiver really wasn't a need at the time. So I think they're going to want to do that. Secondly, Michael Gallup has no contract after this season. So, look, it's a business at the end of the day, right? Do you think maybe they don't feature him as much? I don't know. You never know with these sorts of things. But again, Amari Cooper is in a similar situation. I think the way the Cowboys will feed Zeke is the way they're going to really look for Lamb all over the field and try to really maximize him as much as they can. So I think they look for him a lot. They don't really have that upper echelon tight end that's like that big body, big target type guy in the red zone. So I just think Lamb ends up being the aerial focal point of the offense rather quickly.
Mike, who do you think leads his team in touchdown catches?
I like Gallup this year because he's in a contract year. Usually guys that have contract years blow up and just play their butt off because they want to get out of town and everything. But I agree with Brian. I think CeeDee Lamb is a creature out there. He catches everything thrown to him. He's going to make Dak look really, really good back there. And I think he's going to be a big asset and then moving forward this year. Last year as a rookie, he had a good year near the end of the year. He really started to pick up some steam. And I think this year is only going to be more for him in the way of touchdowns and everything like that. So, yeah, I'll say CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he's the guy. Dalton Schultz, surprisingly, had a few last year. I think he was close to the team lead. I think there was a 3-way tie for 5 touchdowns somewhere along that line. But, yeah, I definitely see that. Now, defensively, the Cowboys drafted a ton of defensive players, and they brought in Dan Quinn, who's a defensive guru. What type of philosophy, Brian, does he bring to the table coming over from the Atlanta Falcons? Because he brought over a couple of players with him.
He did. Now, he's more of a defensive line guy, so he uses a guy like Joe Witt, for example, to be kind of a secondary guy. So between the two of them, they're going to be really more of a simple form of coverage versus the complex schemes that Mike Nolan tried to run last year. And, we're not really going to know because last year's over now, but it felt like he was trying to implement these really advanced concepts and disguises to coverage. And when you think about the way training camp was, everything was virtual. Everything was just you're trying to do way too much, and the defense looked horrible off the jump. And you're like, well, how is it so bad when the majority of the team is the same as it was last year? Yeah, you lost a couple of guys. I'm not saying you didn't, but you didn't lose enough guys to make it look this bad. So I think it's going to be more of like a simpler approach to things. He likes to run a cover 3, which, the free safety, the corners drop into coverage. Strong safety comes up, plays zone with the linebackers. Like Keanu Neal, as you mentioned, Tom, guys he brought in, is a great example of that. Like he's going to come up and really support, the front there. But he's also very flexible in that. If you guys remember Chris Richard, they also ran that cover 3 when he was there in 2019, but they ran it over 50% of the time. Whereas Quinn's he'll adapt to what the offense is trying to do. Whereas I think Richard was more stringent in staying where what he was his bread and butter, which was the cover 3. To me, I'm expecting the defense to be markedly improved simply due to the coaching, because and that's not even me saying I love Dan Quinn. It's me thinking Mike Nolan was a complete abomination in that you're not trying to install, a college, an elite level AP calculus type defense in an offseason where nobody could do on the field. And I think that was probably his downfall. So, if Quinn can get them somewhere near average, I think the team really, takes off. And I do expect them to be a lot better defensively just because Mike Nolan's not calling the shots. And again, that's not necessarily a thumbs up to Dan Quinn, but he's not Mike Nolan. So thumbs up to Dan Quinn.
So my next question, expectations for Micah Parsons.
Look, they put a high pick into the kid. Sean Lee is no longer there. Jalen Smith was talked about that they may even look to move on from him. They didn't pick up Van Der Esch's 5th year. So despite the fact that they put a lot of resources in the linebacker, it's very much in flux. And I think that they're expecting Parsons to come in year 1 and be the guy at linebacker, like make them make a decision on Smith and Van Der Esch at the end of the year. Become the guy that we thought they were going to be so that we can let one of both of them walk. And also drafted Jabril Cox, who was a guy who fell to the 4th round at LSU. So, I feel as though the expectations are through the roof for him. Just totally just a freak athlete. He wasn't the guy I thought they would get. Not that I didn't like the pick. It's just because I just saw no way they weren't getting one of the 2 corners with J.C. Horner and Patrick Surtain. So when that's the direction that they went, I was just kind of surprised. Not that they had a choice; they were gone at that point. But you can see the athleticism. You mentioned the parallels to Devin, to the guy from Tampa Bay. Speed's there. He will be a weapon for them, and I hope that again he shows out enough that we get to this point. X amount of months from now, they decide to let one of these other guys walk. They may not be worth the investment because you put the draft pick into Micah Parsons. Probably the best defensive player in the draft, too.
Now, I looked at the Cowboys depth chart today, and correct me if I'm wrong, I saw Jalen Smith on the 2nd unit. That didn't
sounds
really
about right.
Make sense to me. Did he have a bad preseason, or what's the?
He's the last I saw he was the middle linebacker to start. Micah was on the strong side, Van Der Esch on weak. He again, he's not become who they thought they were getting, even with that 2nd round pick coming off the injury. And I go back to that draft year a lot, Mike. This they could have gone with Jalen Ramsey at 4 and Derrick Henry in the 2nd round. You're probably in a better position if you do that. And by probably, I mean you are. Both Van Der Esch and Smith have not really been. At least, Van Der Esch has the injury problem. Smith just hasn't really played overly well. And again, Keanu Neal may play a little bit of that role too. I really want to see Jabril Cox, but I like I said, I think they're expecting Parsons to be legit this week. I don't think they're even thinking in the future. They think he's a player now.
Mike, are you sold on this defense? Because this defense last year was towards rock bottom in the NFL, and a lot of people are very high on the Cowboys this year, but I haven't seen enough of a convincing improvement yet. Now, I understand it's just preseason. We really don't know until the team has been out there for a few weeks building chemistry. But where do you stand with this defense?
I mean, like you said, they brought guys over from Atlanta. I mean, they brought over DeMonte Kazi to play free safety. I think he'll be pretty good back there. I'm just not a big fan of Dan Quinn. I know he was in Atlanta for a long time, and how good Atlanta's defense got. All he did was make the offense better and better with some picks he had with Ridley and things like that, because their defense couldn't stop anybody. I mean, for years that was Atlanta's problem. They could not get the defense right and did not stop anybody. So, I mean, listen, the Dallas defense was good last year. They came on a little bit near the end last year. I think Micah Parsons is going to be a beast back there. He's going to be like a Devin White in the way of running all over the place, tackling everybody. And I mainly think they did that too to counteract Deontay Smith with the Eagles. I mean, and Brian will talk about it too. The CD Lamb pick was to kind of counteract that as well, because the Eagles were probably going to try to get CD Lamb, so they took him.
The Eagles aren't that bright.
Will be, like you said, the defense will be improved. I'm not sweating them as a Bucs fan. I mean, I think the Bucs can still move the ball on them, but yeah, they'll be better than they were last year.
Actually, I'm going to quick break some news. Ravens and Mark Andrews agree to a $14 million a year deal over 4 years, 14 times 4, which is he'll make the most money at tight end of anybody in the league
for this year.
$6 million over 4 years.
That's pretty interesting. So he sets the bar now for tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he's not even like the best one, I think, right? Top 3 are probably Kelsey, Kittle, Waller.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Waller's going to be up next. I think
Andrews I think Hawkinson has made a convincing argument to be in the top 5 discussion, but I think Andrews probably number 4. So that's pretty interesting.
They look for him. So
my next question. The Cowboys, I feel, are banking on Trevon Diggs to be a CB1, right? A lot of people are trusting this guy. He played at Alabama. Is he able to step up in year 2 and be that guy?
I think it's asking a lot. I think the talent is there, so I'm not going to say like this is like an elite corner in the league right now. He has the pedigree and talent to be. I mean, remember the year that he was drafted, there were some who thought he might be the Cowboys pick in the first round. So to get him where they got him was fantastic. Again, I'm bullish on the player. I also don't want to put these massive expectations on the guy and say, hey, we need you to be an elite corner like right now. Like, you're not Jair Alexander. You're not in that discussion right now. Could he be eventually? Yeah. But I think that I wouldn't count on him to be that true number 1 just yet. And could that hold the team back? Maybe. But I like the player. I like his future. They address the defense a lot in the draft as well. But he will be, he'll be considered the number 1 on the team. I don't know if he's number 1 for Dallas. I know that makes him a number 1, by title.
Right. I feel like our CB2 with Dory Jackson would automatically be your CB1. That's the way I feel.
Well, he is coming from Tennessee's pass defense, which was god awful last year. So who knows?
This is also very true.
We were talking about the Titans recently, and we're like, they lost, but they're starting corners, but they were also god awful in pass coverage last year, so it doesn't really matter.
This is true. I felt like he was hurt last year, though. I don't know how many games he played. He only played, I want to say he only played in 3 games last year. Well, there you go. That's probably the reason why.
That's fair.
Their pass defense was so awful. But Mike McCarthy is a head coach who's been around the block a few times. Had a lot of success in Green Bay, and then things started to crumble for him. What does he need to improve on most heading into year number 2? We'll start with Brian and then go over to Mike.
To me, it's really hard to say. Like, I understand why he was the hire, but at the same time, last year was such a disaster. You lost your quarterback in week 5. You didn't really have a training camp to install anything you wanted to truly install by the ways you normally do so. Defense was a total wreck. Offensive line was a total wreck. So it's kind of like, I don't know that I've even seen what you can do. First off, I think I'll give him credit in that he recognized, or he was forced to recognize, that Mike Nolan was a disaster hire. He did the right thing either by will or by force in making the change, to Dan Quinn. But I just think it's really hard to gauge much from last year because of everything that happened. And not just on the football field. Again, COVID, everything else in the world. It was just a weird year for everyone. Multiply that by every other team in the division. Well, actually, no, not every, they had new head coaches too. I think the Eagles were the only one that did not. But I just want to see what he does here with a full camp, because I just don't think it's fair to judge a guy 1 year in the scenario he was left in. Now, would I have been surprised if he was fired? No, it's Jerry Jones. But I think I would like to see more before I make a judgment call. I don't think it'd be fair.
Mike, what's your opinion on McCarthy? Do you think he's the guy to resolve a lot of these missing pieces?
I mean, I think he is, but I'll lay a Bucs analogy on you. I think it's kind of like a Greg Schiano analogy when Schiano came in from Rutgers, and he came in with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of we're doing this, we're doing this. Well, you are winning, and when he wasn't winning, that's when he lost the team. And I think that's the same thing with McCarthy. The first year, I know it was COVID year and this and that, but they didn't live up to expectations. I know they had injuries, and I know they had this and that, but guys in the locker room see that, and if a guy's not winning with his stuff and some of the stuff going on, it's not working. I mean, look at the Atlanta game. If Atlanta actually knows how to field an onside kick, I mean, they win that game. So, I think he can get it together. I just think it's going to take some winning and some belief in this team that McCarthy is the guy that can do this. But I definitely think he can do it.
James, what's your next question?
My next question, any surprise cuts?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Jaquan Hardy, because like I said, I felt that he could play that Darren Sproles type role. Maybe it does, and he did get to the practice squad, but I thought, maybe if they don't bring in Corey Clement, maybe he's that third, running back, or at least gets it out of camp. So I think there might be something there. Obviously not right now because he's not on the actual active roster, but if Corey Clement doesn't work out, don't be surprised to see him later in the year. I'd like to see what he can do in an actual game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was a little surprised about Darian Thompson only because he used to play for the Giants. I don't know, if he's done anything with the Cowboys. I remember seeing him out there last year. I don't know if you retained him on the practice squad or not, but I know he's a guy that the Giants highly valued when we drafted him, and now he's not even on a team. So I find that kind of funny in a tongue-in-cheek type of way. But yeah, that's my pick for the Cowboys. But any player that flies under the radar, I know Jabril Cox is probably one that a lot of people are thinking, but is there anybody else, Brian, that kind of is like, wow, like Giants, Cowboys, and Washington, Eagles and Washington fans better look out for this kid this year?
Listen, I think Malik Hooker, I don't know why there's so much hate for this player around the league. I mean, he's 15th overall pick in 17 out of Ohio State. He's only 25 years old. To be drafted where he was drafted, the pedigree is there. And the Cowboys have had, a hole at safety for a number of years. I really want to see what this kid's going to be able to do, because I think that, he had an injury last year. Only played a couple of games for the Colts, but he was part of a very good secondary there. So I think it's picking him up off the trash heap, towards the end there. But look, the talent's there. Can the best be coached out of him? And I hope that it can be. I hope he's a good fit for this system. But I mean, obviously, this isn't really under the radar player, but somebody to watch is CeeDee Lamb, because like I said, they need him to be the guy that they drafted, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the other two starting receiving spots. Gallup with no deal. Amari might be on the outs, depending on how things look just financially. So, he's shown in camp why people were shocked he fell in the draft. And you mentioned the Eagles. No, the Eagles didn't go up and get him. And thankfully, they like to blow wide receiver picks. They probably did again with Devontae Smith because, gets hit over by a stiff wind. But those are my two guys. Like I said, I think Lamb is the star of the offense, and I really would like to see what Hooker does defensively.
Mike, is there anybody for you? I think Malik Hooker's a really good pick because he used to start for the Colts. So I'm going to kind of be in alignment there with Brian.
Yeah, it's funny. Isn't it funny how, a while ago, not too long in the past, that we saw Dallas give up a first-round pick for Amani Cooper, and now he's on his outs. So I know he hasn't turned into the player that he wanted to be, but kind of overpaid for him too as well, and took a chance on him as well. But I think CeeDee Lamb, like Brian said, has to be the guy this year for them. But I got to watch out for in the division. I'll tell you what, on the defensive side of the ball is Chase Young. I think he's going to be an absolute monster this year. I mean, you talk about his motor last year at the end of the year. In the last 4 games, he was everywhere and just causing havoc with quarterbacks. I think it's even going to be worse this year. He's got the hang of this now. He knows how that swim move works, and now that they don't have Kerrigan there, he's going to be the main guy there now. So I think he's going to be a guy to just look out for when you play him on the other side of the ball.
Caden Smith's overtime touchdown against Washington in 2019 gave them that Chase Young pick. So good job, Giants, with that one. It could have been 7-9 instead of 6-10. So predicting the NFC East right now, all four of us, the Cowboys' last NFC East title was in 2018. First, let's predict this division. I'm going to go first, and I think I just want to briefly say that, obviously, as the homer, I do have the Giants winning the division this year. It's the first time I felt optimistic about this team in the past 5 to 6 years. I think they're going to squeak it out. I think the Cowboys, for me, and this is how I measure that stat, right? I think Washington can't skate by with quarterback issues again this season. They're pretty much their whole team is complete except for the QB position. Maybe one or two positions on the line that could be upgraded. But for me, it's who got better, right? The Giants offense or the Cowboys defense. And the Giants brought in players like Kenny Galladay, Kyler Rudolph, Saquon is back if he's healthy. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but I think the Cowboys are going to finish in second around that 9-8, 10-7 record. That's where I have them falling right now.
I mentioned this earlier, if Dan Quinn can get the defense to like somewhere in the vicinity of average compared to how bad it was last year, and the offense proves that those big gains that they had, both in terms of yards and points, were not just the result of the defense being trash, so you have to throw a lot more. So therefore, obviously, your aerial numbers are gaudy. I honestly think the Cowboys are the only team in the division to be able to get to double-digit wins. So I think it is their division to lose. Having said that, it's been their division to lose many times in my life, and they have lost it. So that doesn't really, none of that's going to surprise me. Nothing surprises me with the Cowboys. I mean, it's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I agree with you, Tom. Like, I do think the Giants will be improved from last year, but I don't know if the record's going to show it. I thought they overachieved a bit last year, and I like a lot of what Joe Judge has done, and there is absolutely reason for optimism if you're a Giants fan. I think they maybe won a couple games this year. They maybe should have lost. So I think that, they'll be a better team. They might just not see a huge jump up in wins to show for it. I don't think, and you mentioned Fitzpatrick, I don't think he's any sort of an answer for Washington. Their defense is going to be absolutely fantastic, but I can't assume that offense gets it done, even though they added playmakers around it. It's still Ryan Fitzpatrick. I just feel good about that. And I think the Eagles, frankly, are 2 to 3 years away from being 2 to 3 years away. I'm not a Hurts fan. I don't think a team with holes all over the roster should be drafting wide receivers in the top 10. It's a bottom 5 roster, and the offensive line is old and getting older. I don't see a whole lot to be like super excited about if I'm them. They can say whatever they want to, but they're a ways away, and they're better off losing every game. And I think their fans deep down kind of know that. So I think the Cowboys should win the division. Having said that, that means absolutely nothing because they should do a lot of things they don't do.
Mike, who do you have? NFC East or NFC least, I should say.
I'm going to say I like the Cowboys. Well, I like the Cowboys. I like the Giants to compete with them this year. And when push comes to shove, I think I'm going to just barely by the skin of my teeth go with the Cowboys. I think they end up 11-6. I think the Giants end up 10-7. And that could go either way. I mean, I think that if Dallas, takes a little bit of a stumble during the year, Giants are going to be right there with them to capitalize on and possibly take the division. I'm with Brian. I think Fitzpatrick's not that big of an upgrade for Washington. I mean, he is getting up there. It's Fitzmagic, but I don't know if it's Fitzmagic again. It's like his 9th team. So, I mean, their defense is going to be great. And the Eagles, he's spot on as well. We've been like this all year with the Eagles. I mean, you're drafting a wide receiver and you got so many other needs. That offensive line is falling apart. You got Hurts. You took him. When you took him, and he's ranked right now as the 31st quarterback in the league. It's going to be a rough year, a rough sledding for the Eagles. I mean, I don't even see them getting 3rd in the division. I think it's going to be that rough for them. So I'll say the Cowboys win a division at 11-6, and I say the Giants are right there on their heels at 10-7.
James.
Well, there's only 3 true teams in this division: Cowboys, Giants, and Washington.
Yep.
Can we all just agree the Eagles should be in their own league of their own, trying to figure stuff out down in Philly? I mean, I think all of us understand that opinion. Washington, we're lucky that our closet fan Kyle
Our
Russo
co-host is in love with Washington, and he's a Giants
loves
fan too. It's the worst part.
So he would say Washington's coming up. Washington, I think they'll have their moments throughout the season. Like, they'll string wins together and make it interesting for their fans, make it interesting for the league, but they won't go anywhere. It will come down to the last probably 2 to 3 weeks of Giants Cowboys, figuring out who's going to win it. They're both improved. Mike McCarthy gets a second year, full preseason under him. You got Dak back. You look at the Giants, you got Barkley back, somewhat of an improved offensive line, some new wide receivers. So it's going to be a battle all the way through. I don't see them figuring it out to at least the last 2 weeks of the season. I think it's going to be that close, bouncing back between who's losing, who's winning, and then division wins and losses.
All right, but I'm putting you on the spot. You got to pick somebody here. Who is it?
The Giants.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty clear.
Sounds good.
Listen, Tom, you and I have talked about this probably a bunch of times just about the Giants. I mean, this is Danny Dimes' year. Like, they've taken out every reason why you can't be successful. So if you're not successful, given the fact that running backs have very short careers, they need to know if he's their guy in 2022. And if this goes off the rails, he will not be their guy in 2022 because they can't afford to wait to find out.
See, I'm gonna step in for a second, 'cause I think last year is kind of a weird year for him. I mean, I know you're saying you're moving the needle forward with him and trying to get him in the right direction, but the guy lost the top 4 running back last year in the league. The guy lost Shepard last year. He lost weapons as a wide receivers. So putting a lot of pressure on him. I know he's been in the league now, 3 years or 2 years or whatever it may be, but I kind of like Danny Dimes. I think he's the guy that the Giants look to be that next guy. I just don't know if you can really pin this year on him, saying that he has to do it this year or he's out. Because last year it was a struggle for him, and I think he panned out okay for what he had to deal with last year.
I'm going to side more with Mike on that argument, only because I saw what he brought in the second half of the season. Right. And I understand last year every team was dealing with injuries. Every team was dealing with COVID. But, I mean, the Giants lost 2 offensive linemen who were playing with injuries all year, and we were starting 3 rookies. And I think the continuity will help that line in front of Jones in year number 3. We traded for Ben Bredesen, who will probably be starting on the line for us at some point. But that's where I lie. I do think that if Daniel Jones throws 20-plus interceptions, then you have to replace him. That means he's not, fulfilling his job. But, yeah, I think that's a fair argument for sure. But moving on to our last 4 or 5 minutes or so, let's predict this game. We've talked about the Cowboys in full and predicted where they'll finish in the NFC East. We've talked about Mike's Tampa Bay Buccaneers and where they'll finish in the NFC South. At this time, let's get to this, guys. So first thing I want to say is, congratulations on being the first game of the season. Obviously, the team that wins the Super Bowl and America's team gets the first game on Thursday Night Football.
Thank God. I'm so happy we get to play the ball. I've never been happier, actually.
So I want the 2 of you to butt heads for just a second. Obviously, Zach Collins is out. He's on the COVID-19 list. I know Jordan Whitehead is questionable, Mike. I don't know what his status is in the secondary. Has he practiced this week at all?
No, he hasn't practiced, but I think it's kind of they're resting him as well. I hear he's going to play. From the stuff that I've read online, he is going to play, but they're just kind of holding him out in hopes that he gets a little bit ready. And they may even go game time decision. I mean, if they go game time decision and he can't play, it's going to be interesting to see who they put back there in his place. So probably Charlton Davis, maybe they might put him back there.
Is there any possible way for the Cowboys to skid this game out at all? Like, is there a way? Because my problem is this. We mentioned earlier, the Bucs could be the best linebacking unit in the league. I mean, last year, JPP, 9.5 sacks. Devin White, 9 sacks. Shaq Barrett had 8. How is Prescott going to buy any time against this fierce pass rushing group? I think that's the key to the game because it's how the Bucs beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. How is Dak going to do this with no line?
It's exactly my point. So when you take Martin out of the equation, and remember that is why the Buccaneers won the game, because they could not protect Mahomes, who's running around. It was never going to work out. That is why they won. You can speak about Brady till we're blue in the face. It is what it is. That look, he's a winner again, but they won that game on the strength of their defense. To be fair, and that's a very good offense that they shut down. They kept the 9 points. Right. Tampa should win the game, and I honestly, I don't even care if they lose this game. I'm more interested to see if the defense comes to play or not. They need to not get blown out. They need to be within a score in the fourth quarter. I think the most bullish thing if you're a Cowboys fan of them winning the game is Micah Parsons wearing a Jameis Winston jersey. I think that's bad juju. So I think that's good for the Cowboys. That's the spirit. There you go. But I will tell you that like nobody thinks the Cowboys are going to win. Ergo, if they do, it's a shocker. I think in that way, like as much as I think the Bucs don't care, as much I think the Bucs are going to cruise to their division championship and home games in the playoffs, they kind of need to win more than Dallas does. This is like their first game with actual people in the stands, like a full stadium at home. You're defending. This is the first time people are going to see Tom Brady play football in a Bucs jersey, right? Mm-hmm. So that's important. And I think, like I said, for Dallas, it's house money. You're walking in with, your quarterback's back for his first game. Like you have expectations too, but no one thinks you're going to win here. The line's like 8, right? So teams that are 8-point favorites don't lose that much unless I bet them. So for me, I think Tampa wins this game. But if they don't, Mike's going to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm not a little concerned about this game, but I know next Tuesday's show will be rough if the Bucs lose the first game. Yeah, listen, like Brian said, the Bucs have all the pressure on them for this game. They're Super Bowl champs. They're playing their first home game on Thursday Night Football, opening the season up. Brady's at the helm. I think to be honest, I think they're going to be a little bit rusty. I don't think they're going to have that real fire that they came out with before. I think it's going to be a back and forth game, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the Bucs will win this game. I think it's going to be like a 28-21 game. They'll make some mistakes. I think both teams will. The big factor is, I think, for Brian's sake, is Dak comes out and has a good game. If he comes out and just, I'm not saying stakes the joint out, but doesn't play like the Dak, I mean, you got to be a little bit concerned because that could be an injury thing.
Yeah, but I would be much more concerned if their defense looks like trash again.
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter what they're not going to score 40 points a game again. Not going to happen. So you need that defense to look like they're a professional football level defense, which they were not last year. So like, I think that they need to play well. If Dak struggles, that's the injury. If Zeke struggles, Zach Martin's not playing. The defense is at full board. So I don't want to hear it. Like, I need you to appear to be like you can actually play the part of a pro football defense.
So if you guys want a little tip, if you guys are in any kind of suicide league, I would hold on to the Bucs as long as you can until week 4, because Tom Brady goes back up to New England. Yeah. He is going to be so jacked for that game. He might throw 9 touchdowns in that game. So that could be the week you use him. I mean, I'm looking forward to that game so much this year. I even tried to get tickets and I can't find anything under $9.50 a ticket. So it doesn't look like I'm going. So
yeah, that week 4 game is going to be insane. Thinking about it, Brady going back to New England, that's going to be insane.
Super Bowl champ, 20 years there, and he's going home for the last time. How could you set that up any better?
No, absolutely. Now let's pick this game. Mike, I'll start with you with the defending champs coming in here. Do you have like a final score prediction, or where do you think this game's going?
I'm gonna say Bucs win 20. Actually, I'll say 31-14. I think they cruise in this game. They make some mistakes, but I think they should cruise in this game and win this game because they're at home. They're opening the season up. I mean, not Brian, because I think Dallas is going to be there at the end. But I just think this is a game the Bucs have to win and win, kind of convincingly.
This game just screams to me the Cowboys are going to cover, like, at the end. So, like, give me like a 28-24. type thing. Like I think they find backdoor cover. They could be down 28-7. They could be down like 28 to 17 or something. Like whatever, 28-23. They go for 2 or something to make it like 20-25. Like they'll get one at the end just because I think the money is coming in on Tampa Bay. When the money's coming in, you want to be on the opposite side of that.
James, what do you think?
24-6 Tampa.
6.
Wow.
All right. Well, all right.
Well, man, I gotta hope
Starbucks. I'll take over 6.5 on a Starbucks. How about
that? James, I just want to run this by you. The Cowboys, and again, I'm not picking the Cowboys, but the Cowboys lead the all-time series 15-4. These teams haven't met since 2018. So how ironic is that? So I'm going to go ahead and take the Bucs, but I'm not going to take 24-6. I'm actually going to take 24-16 Bucs. I think Dallas is going to keep it close. I think Tampa Bay has a little bit more firepower in them at this point. I think they have a few more weapons, as crazy as that sounds, because the Cowboys have a whole bunch. I think the Bucs are just slightly more loaded than Dallas, and I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And I'm really excited for this football game, guys. Do you have any final thoughts on this game before we let you both go here? You were excited for football in general, just to be back. It's week 1.
The Cowboys will score at least 6.5 points. Give me the hard over on 6.5.
The Bucs are always known for Aguayo, picking him as a kicker early. They brought this kid in, Jose Borregales. He's been doing well in preseason. The Bucs can't seem to get it right in kickers. They did last year with Suckup, but this year they got Borregales in there, and he should be the guy until Suckup gets in there, because I know he's injured right now. But that's going to be interesting. But the Bucs, I think, cruising this way, hopefully.
I think special teams, we didn't really talk about that much. I know you talked about Darden in the beginning. He'll be returning punts, but I think that will play a factor as well. And James, just so you know, if the Cowboys do score 6.5 points, you'll be sending Brian a Starbucks coffee all the way from Long Island down to South Jersey. So,
I technically won't be on the island. I'll be in Michigan. So it'll be from Michigan to Jersey.
I want to get some action on that too. I think they're going to score more than 6.5.
If they don't score a touchdown, I'm going to be like, you know what? At that point, when's hockey season start? Because I'm not even going to care.
Yes, absolutely.
Guys, if you can just plug the Sports Box one more time, really do appreciate both of you joining us here tonight.
Listen, so Sportsbox is a network, very much like Review and Preview. We've been doing this for a number of years. We have probably way too many shows at this point with way too many people, but it's a lot of fun. Our team has a blast. We actually just did our first ever live Sportsbox fantasy draft last week, which was that was a lot of fun. So all the guys have a great time. We're covering mostly everything. I have a Rangers show because why not? We do everything. So Mike and I are on Tuesday nights at 8:30, except for tomorrow because I have a draft and I don't miss my draft. But throughout football, we really look back at the previous week's games on Tuesdays, kind of like, the storylines coming out of that week. And that's what, the NFL, it's a week-to-week league. So things are always constantly changing. We try to break it down Tuesday nights. But we have shows almost every night. So check out the lineup. I'm sure you'll find something that you like if it's not us.
Yeah, and we're going to start our Sunday preview show soon. That's going to be fun. We had our first remote last week since 2019. From a place in Hamilton, Showcase Sports, that they were phenomenal to put us in there. There'll be many more remotes. And listen, we're just guys that talk sports, have a good time with it. And listen, we're having a blast. We're moving the needle. We get more and more people all the time. And it's a great ride. So
I always say this, the best part about what we do is the people that we meet, and we've had a chance to come friendly with you guys. And it's fun interacting with you and collaborating with you. I hope that continues.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys taking the time, gentlemen. Good luck to both of you on Thursday night. Make sure to check out the Sports Box on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you can find the Sports Box on social media. They're there. Guys, one last time, thank you so much. And we'll have to chat with you again soon.
Tom and James, thank you very much. Go Bucs.
No problem.
Go Bucs.